There we are. Saying hello to everybody. This is Will Cattle here, welcoming Sparkgeo's CTO, Dustin Sampson. He's been with us, it's got to be 12 years, something like that. But we want to talk today about vibe coding and how if we were starting Sparkgeo today, there would be no jobs and we would just be vibe coding everything from scratch. But I'd like to tee this conversation up a little bit. Dustin and I were having a discussion at the beginning of this week about using Claude for proofs of concept, so pulling ideas together, things that used to take a little bit of time to create, and how we can use sort of prompts just to create really quick proofs of concept. No sense of necessarily whether those proofs of concept are production ready or anything like that, but just that they are like does the idea work? So this week, I've been let loose on Claude Code with minimal support, I would say, minimal support from the Sparkgeo development team. And without writing a single line of code, I've created 3 different applications. So I'm like somewhat sold on vibe coding for proofs of concept. But like Dustin, you've been writing software your entire career. Like, what do you see around LLMs and vibe coding? Is this something we should be? Is this dangerous? Is this something we should be investing in? What for a company like Sparkgeo, what should we be thinking about?
I mean, I started looking 2 months now, digging into this and trying to do a whole project, a bigger project using vibe coding. And it started off like everyone else, the quick prompt, see what it can do. It usually makes garbage. After doing some research, came across vibe planning, which is a multi-step process. I mean, there's a 4-step process that I've seen 8-step processes where you start off with a general idea. The LLM, in my case, I was using Claude. The LLM will come up with a high-level architectural plan. Then that architectural plan with a bit of prompting gets moved into an engineering plan. And the engineering plan gets moved into an AI type plan that you can feed in. I found generally it gets overly abstracted and overly complicated, the code. If you actually start digging, if I had to go in and maintain that code, it'd be a nightmare. A nightmare probably to deal with, basically to deal with. And then I shelved that because I got busy with other stuff. And then I started working on a project and finding, oh, I need a tool to do this kind of thing. And I'd search around on the internet, see what I could find. And then I would just ask Claude, create me this tool. And then, oh, that works great. Looks good. It's simple. When you talk about POC, it gives you the one page HTML file with everything baked in. And it does exactly what I want. And I deploy it. And now I have this tool. So, over the last, you mentioned building 3 tools. I think I got 3 or 4 tools now that I've done as well. Basically same kind of thing, and make them available. Then anyone in the organization can use it. And those POCs of just putting together something quickly, I've been able to knock something off that would probably take a day of fiddling around with, or some of these one pages, to get it right in the way you want it in 20 minutes, half an hour. So for POCs, if it doesn't work out and I scrap it, I'm not out that much. I'm not out a full day, basically. I'm out 20 minutes, half an hour. And one of the things that I find interesting is I have a list of ideas I've been writing down of like, oh, this would be cool to look into, or this would be cool to look into. So I went to that after you and I chatted a couple of days ago. I was like, what do I have in there? And one of them was a tool to do like summaries of files. So I'm always dealing with files, and I want a quick summary of it. Stuff like GDEL info and OGR info for geospatial stuff is awesome for that. So I basically built the equivalent of that vibe coding for like CSV, Excel. It gives me the data types, it lists out the, all the information. It gives me a sample set, all that stuff, 15, 20 minutes kind of
Pretty
idea.
good.
So for that kind of thing, I mean, it's great for that. So the interesting thing about this is, what's the next step? Like, could we do POC for a customer in like a small percentage of the time as it traditionally would do?
Yeah.
And get feedback from them right away.
Yeah, I find that, our discovery processes are kind of like, they're pretty deep and they're pretty solid and they're very human. And like, that's a piece that would be hard to replicate within an LLM environment. But once you've completed that discovery process, conceivably you could create a POC from that discovery relatively quickly. And then even if it's simply just like testing the directionality of a project, like, are we moving in the right direction? Is this the kind of thing we're looking for? Like, I don't think we're suggesting that. Certainly, I'm not suggesting that we're going to be able to build things of exactly the same quality based on prompts. That's not happening anytime soon. But testing directionality really fast and getting customers super excited about progress, I think that's a great idea. And then also from an internal perspective, can you just like build these internal tools that you have in the back of your head? You're like, oh wow, I wish I could do this. I would script this if I could write it quicker, because I'm going to do this like 4 or 5 times a month, but I can't really be bothered, so I'm not going to. But if it is just a 20-minute mess around with a prompt, then you would do that stuff, and you will have these sort of efficiencies built. I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense. It's just and building that into our generalized workflow like becomes really interesting. So when you're talking about vibe planning, do you like roll that right into the tool creation process? And if you do that, does it get you a better tool as a result?
I think it does for the bigger projects. So I've migrated away of actually having those prompts anymore, of taking on the role of an architect, taking on the role of an engineer, taking on the role of a designer, to moving towards agents. So in Claude, I've had these different agents I can use. So when I need to do a process, let's say invoke this agent, pass this context to it, which might be a document or something like that, and then go build this thing. And so it's taking that, taking into consideration. So I can have all my rules to say, these are the libraries I like to use. And so I don't have to keep doing that same stuff every time. So, so yes, in that sense, it does definitely help. So it's so you don't forget to do stuff, like telling it not to overly abstract something. I could stick that in a rule, so that every time I ask it to do something, I don't need to be thinking about that every single time.
Or okay, so like when you're designing an agent, then how do you even go about that? Like, what is the first step in building? Let's say you're building, like, would you build a customer agent? Well, like, what kind of agents are you building?
Currently, I mean, for the one thing I was working on, I have a QA agent, I have a back-end engineer, I have a front-end engineer, I have a designer, I have an architect, and I have, what's the other one? There's one more, I can't remember what it is. I think it's like a marketing type person, like to see viability and see the business side of things of how it could be monetized.
So what's the difference between a front-end agent and a back-end agent?
I think it's just what it's looking into, like what it needs to focus on. If things are getting better now, because the amount of tokens that you can, basically the amount of context you can keep in memory for the AI agent is so much better now. So you don't need to worry as much about that. But they're just more focused on that particular thing. They're looking for certain kinds of things.
Got it. And the agents allow you to hold on to context for longer.
Yeah. So, well, the other thing is you can have multiple agents going at the same time. So if you got I haven't worked this through yet, but the idea would be I could get a project going, get the base of it written, and then after that, I could say, okay, well, these are the tickets kind of idea, if you're thinking about tickets of work that I need to do. So I could send agents after each one, and you can sub agent out. So I could say, okay, you go work on this one, and after you're done, you create a pull request for it. So it'll go do that. I could have a back end doing one. So I could have multiple agents working on the code base at the same time, potentially.
So interesting. So interesting. But that makes more sense when you're thinking about building against the bigger architecture. That's less about
for the
POC.
Yeah, for the POCs, you don't need to get going that crazy on stuff, I don't think.
No, because unless you want to, build some kind of more, like a lightweight, like full stack agent, I guess.
Yeah.
Someone who's designed something that would emulate someone who's a bit of a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Is where POCs can fit in.
And I think it's probably worthwhile to have a rule set that the whole organization can use of certain technologies or whatever that people can just keep adding to. So things are taken into consideration when you're asking it to build something for you.
Interesting. So like, when you're thinking about proofs of concept, then would you set up a persistent kind of proof of concept environment? Or is it better to start from scratch each time?
Some of the tools handle it for you. Like in the case of Claude, you can do a project level, or you can do workspace level or something like that. So it's available for every project you do.
Got it.
So I mean, I would lean towards some of the rules be workspace level, so it's always there for me, because it's always the same thing. So I don't have to reprompt it every single time or re-add that piece in every single time.
Got it.
Some of these agents could be just shared. I mean, get a good definition, start with something, get a good definition of an agent, and then people can just start, okay, I noticed this agent doing this, let's correct it. And then that's available to everyone.
So does that mean so when you're thinking about repeatability around authentication and stuff like that, so it just makes it easy, like we always do it the same way?
Maybe on that. I was thinking just on the agents themselves, so everyone's using the same agent.
Oh, okay.
Organization. So you're using the same things. Ideally, it's I don't know if it's going to, but it would produce similar type of outputs, like styling. I noticed the stuff that you build and the stuff that I build, I'm taking a different approach to what my outputs look like. For example, like maybe there's stuff around that.
I like Claude just chose what my outputs look like.
See, what I'll do is I'll go there's a website that will give you all a whole bunch of different kind of websites, screenshots of them, and I'll find one that I like, and I'll download that image, and you tell it to use that for context for styling.
Interesting. Yeah, I actually asked it to restyle one layout to look more like Claude, and it did quite a good job. It's kind of interesting. And of course, the funny thing is those styling changes, like those broad layout changes, would be an utter pain in the ass in real life. I mean, that would just be, you would sigh and it would take you a week. But this thing just rewrites it almost instantly. It's kind of ludicrous, really. So I find that piece so like those, that kind of, it's not quite grunt work, but it's the stuff that would be a real pain in the butt. It just becomes incredibly straightforward.
Well, it gets a lot of the boilerplate stuff done for you, so you don't have to mess with that. Like, I mean, you're not messing with trying to center a div on the screen anymore, or any of that stuff. And I mean, we haven't even talked like MCP servers. There's all these servers that the AI can talk to. One of them I'm using is Playwright, which can run a browser headless,
right?
And it can communicate with that, and it can see it. So you can say, "Oh, this button's misaligned." It will go there, and it can either view the rendered HTML, or it can take a screenshot of that for you, and then it can scan it for you and say, "Oh yeah, you're right, the button's misaligned," and it goes and corrects it. Or it has access to the dev console, for example, and see logs, errors coming out.
Interesting.
Or there's one that you can go get the latest documentation on something. So you're using the latest APIs and stuff like that. It's not using something that whatever was trained on, a year ago, whatever the case
Yeah,
is.
I've used the Mapbox MCP server for sort of routing and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think it's funny, like I use as someone who travels the world, I use routing all the time to get myself around, but you don't necessarily get to engage with Mapbox routing unless it's built into something else. So it's kind of interesting to sort of engage on that level, because I'm constantly rerouting stuff, and that doesn't necessarily work a treat in Google. I've definitely had marital stresses from Google rerouting us in various different parts of the world, and neither of us really knowing why Google just decided to reroute, but it did, and exactly the wrong time. And no, everyone gets a bit stressed by that situation. So it would be nice to know why that happened. It'd be nice to sort of build this like situation where you just don't get rerouted. You just stick to the route, yeah. So anyway, that's all to say, wouldn't it be nice to be able to build your own sort of Google Maps equivalent that is functional, that isn't going to leave you in a sticky spot? And of course, Google and Apple and Mapbox they all think about location in a slightly different way. So it's nice to be able to compare and contrast and kind of know the differences, where one's going to work better than the others. So I find that interesting. So the MCP thing is pretty neat. What I haven't tried yet, and it's like, for me, this would be next level, is like I've always found in our organization doing like mobile apps has been a bit of a pain. We're web centric. We're better at the web. We just done more web stuff. But being able to do proofs of concept that I could drop onto my phone through test flight or whatever, that would be really interesting to figure that piece out. That would be kind of next level. So that might be my fall project, to see if I can make something happen on my phone. And then that's when I get really dangerous. I'm going to break a whole bunch of stuff at that point. But it'd be interesting to find out what that even looks like. How complex that would be, because you got to deal with the whole iStore and all that kind of stuff. App Store and the rest of it. Yeah. So it's not. Yeah, there's other kind of institutional requirements to manage for, but that would be, from a proof of concept perspective, that makes a ton of sense. So I actually want to try stuff out and push it onto a phone really fast to see what it looks like, to see if it makes sense. Because so much location stuff is like the phone makes a ton of sense. So interesting. So
I talked to a client yesterday and suggested, they're looking to build a community around their product and whatever, the data and stuff they have. I suggested this for that. I said, you could start creating examples and starter kits and all that stuff. Maybe not starter kits, but examples of how to connect and use the stuff. So they're going to look into that. The other thing I'm looking to test probably next week will be, how can a request come in, and having the LLM use all the repos for the project as context, can it estimate how long that ticket's going to take?
Oh yeah,
for developers.
The mythical man month from an LLM.
So there's estimating out how long it might take, but also interpreting stuff from their support team that are kind of vague requests that come in, and try to turn that into, like, this is what it's going to take to do, or whatever the case is, so it saves the product person time.
Yeah, so the tests that I want to run were can I build things that are, in air quotes, valuable without writing a line of code? Yeah. Obviously my problem now is that I've written all this stuff, or no, I haven't written all this stuff. I've asked this stuff to be written, but it's a complete black box. I have absolutely no idea what's going on in there. And that's from a sort of consultancy software development perspective, that's an enormous risk. So we could never let anything go out of our organization without it being overtly reviewed and checked into it, because just like who knows what's happening there. I don't think anything nefarious is happening, but like there could just be a ton of extra stuff that's just completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Or it might just be making up some answers and I don't really know why. So like without doing a proper check on things, I mean, like this isn't by any means like the solution to web development and sort of consulting, but I do love the ability to test ideas really fast. I think that's like for me, that is an absolute slam dunk. It just like I'm always thinking of stupid ideas and I'm like, oh no, I can't, I just don't have the time to test that out. Like stupid art projects with Earth observation. Like,
well, I think you can put some guardrails in there. I mean, this is like the equivalent of doing static analysis of code for styling, things that you shouldn't be code reviewing. Some there's programs for that. And one of the things I've done previously was having a design plan or design document and having that. And when I ask the LM to do something, I say, go back, review the design plan, whatever you're implementing, and grade yourself against the design document. And if the grade isn't over 7 or 8 out of 10, go back and make changes. So it can go back and basically try to fix itself until it reaches a grading system. I mean, it's doing it. That part's a bit of a black box, how it grades itself.
yeah,
But you could start defining rules, what that means.
that's
But
so interesting.
For my just initial test was just feedback in. If the grading isn't this, then go back.
But that's so interesting. Like
keep looping.
Like, was it in some way kind of self-reflective? Oh yeah, I didn't do a very good job of this piece. I think this piece could be better.
Well, that's where you could get other agents. So you could get a designer, a QA agent. So the work would be done, and then the QA agent would go back and give it. It would be have the context to know how to go back and review that and check it over and say, no, this doesn't cut it, and then go back and fix it. You can start getting them against each other. So
yeah, you could, and then like, building agents that are customers, of which some are very sophisticated and some are not. And like, how would a less technically competent person interact with this user interface? Do you feel that this would work? And, yeah, it's interesting how critical and also absolutely desperate to please the LLMs are. I was talking to someone yesterday. I said it's like, it feels like the most enthusiastic intern you've ever had, and all you get to do is say, oh, that's cool, now can you do this? And then they run off and they do it incredibly fast, and they come back and they say, how's this? And it's like, pretty good, now can you do that?
But you could ask it to be brutal, especially on reviews.
Yeah.
Like if I write some kind of code and then say, basically be brutal on the code review.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not trying to save your feelings. It's going to tell you. I mean, obviously it's not going to catch everything, but it's a good first step before a human has to look at it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So like, it's still in terms of, in terms of POCs, I think it's great, but in terms of actual like robust software delivery, it may be a good start, but it's by no means a polished product.
No, I think it might be good for parts, like helping with some of the boilerplate.
Sure.
But it's under a more controlled environment where you're like, I need a function to do something, or give me a layout kind of thing, like something simple, small little things that you can review quick.
Got it.
Yourself. But POCs, yeah, I mean, if you don't care what the underlying thing is, just to get something in front of a client so they can see, yeah, I like that or I don't like that, or whatever, no go. I think it's definitely worth looking at.
And also like considering that because so little effort's being put into it, there's no kind of emotional connection to, oh, maybe we should just keep on using some of this anyway. It's like, no, actually, we don't need to keep any of this. It took me 20 minutes to put together. I iterated it 3 different times. I got 3 different versions of the same kind of thing. I don't really care which one we keep. I don't really have to keep any of them. We can take this bit and that bit and mess around, and then we can sort of pull this concept and pull that concept. And, you know, I mean, I guess maybe that does it create more or less technical debt? I guess it should ultimately create less.
Well, there shouldn't be technical debt 'cause you're not keeping it.
Well, that's but yeah, the human tendency is to keep some of it, though.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great because you can keep ideas. Like I could talk to a client, get some general ideas, show that to them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it'd be cool to do this." I mean, I can knock that off in probably 10 minutes. List out what changes. I mean, you've used it. Knock that off in 10, 15 minutes. And have it back to the client within an hour.
Yeah.
For further review versus having to go away for 2 days and have or a day or whatever to make those changes.
Like, can you see a situation where you'd actually create the environment where, yeah, you've got a couple of trained agents, like we trained up the agents, we know exactly what they're doing, they're good, and that you would sit with a client and do a live proof of concept session?
I think there's too much wait time still. I think
okay.
I've talked to others on this before, and what they'll do is, I'm going back to that planning idea. They plan the stuff using the more sophisticated models to get the plan right, and then the actually code execution of writing code, they'll go to the quicker models. So then it's like way faster to generate that. Whether the results are, I haven't done that myself, but then potentially you could sit with the client, but there's a lot of wait time unless you're going to invest hours in. It's not there yet.
You've got to avoid those awkward silences with your customer when you're just waiting for something to work. Yeah.
And then if it doesn't work, and then you're it's still things you got to work out. So I don't know if that would be there yet.
So we're a ways from that, but in terms of like getting something back to them within the hour, that's ridiculous. And in like hours instead of weeks makes us an astonishing difference.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's call it there. Thanks very much, Dustin. Yeah. See you later.
Yep. Chat about it again. Sure.
Okay.